everybody. This is Subrina Wood with the SyFy Sisters, and we're here for another episode of the SyFy Sisters. I'm here with Tamia Harper and Fran Taylor. Say hello, ladies.
Hello.
Hello.
And today's episode is going to be on the captains and their first officers. Now, we've got 6 franchises where we've had this really interesting relationship between the captain and the first officer. And what we're going to go through today is just who were the really great ones, who may have had a little issues, and were these relationships better or worse for having aliens or opposite sex in either position. So to start it off, we're just going to go through a little bit about which of our favorite pairings, which ones are our favorite pairings. So I'm going to start it off, and I'm going to say that my favorite captain and first officer pairing is definitely, I'm old school. It's Kirk and Spock. All right. It's the relationship that started it all. I'm saying that's my favorite. I love watching them together. I love watching the way they interact. So I'm going to hand it over to Fran, who's another OG Star Trek person. Which one of the captains and first was your all-time favorite pairing?
Oh my gosh, this is so hard. See, I wanted to say Kirk and Spock because they were the originals, and they had, I don't want to take anything from what you said. It's just, they were friends, and Spock was like just the balance, the yin to his yang, and they were just so good together, I thought. And then I guess my second one was Cisco and Kira. Yeah, because they both had strong personalities, but I think she kind of waned hers a bit because of her personal spiritual views of him and him being the emissary in her eyes. But I thought she was a great first officer too. They kind of played off each other. They both were strong personalities, though.
Yeah. So Tamia, which was your favorite pairing of all of these?
I think as far as a working relationship goes, I think I really like Picard and Riker. I like how they were just like a well-oiled machine. Riker was really took his duties as a first officer really seriously, and so he always had his captain's back, but more so than that, he could anticipate what his captain needed, and took his duties about running the ship very seriously. So he didn't have to his captain knew he could rely on him, and he didn't have to guess about anything, and it was sort of, it's very much, it's a little bit of a mentor-mentee, relationship, but not so much, it wasn't so unequal, you knew that Riker could step in and fill in for the captain if needed. I just really thought that they were really simpatico, and how they worked together, both with a little bit of a different style too, about how they led and commanded.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's just make this clear. So the job of the first officer, I think, needs to be defined so that we can go forward with this episode, and we all hit on things that are part of their jobs. And another thing about this whole relationship is that they were very different in the way it was sort of like mentor-mentee, which is what you said about Riker and Picard, Picard and Riker. And Fran, you mentioned that Spock and Kirk were almost like brothers. So it was different. It was different in the way they reacted to each other. And I don't know whether age may have had something to do with that, but we all know Spock was much older than he looked. But I think Kirk and Spock looked like they were the closest in age to each other. But the job of the first officer is he's somebody that has to run the day-to-day operations of the ship. He has to protect not only the crew, but also the captain. He protects everybody on that ship. He also is the captain's sounding board, and he's his moral compass.
Depending on the series, because for Enterprise and for TOS, they had other jobs.
Yes, very interesting. They were also department heads as well as
Right.
the XO.
Yes. Because in Enterprise, she was but she was on the bridge. What was her? She had another job.
She was
too.
a science officer.
Right. Okay. Thank you. She was a science officer.
Yeah. She and Spock were both science officers.
Were both science officers. Yes. So.
And now Burnham also was the science officer when she was with Georgiou.
Exactly.
Yes, she was.
So I think Riker is probably the only one that didn't have a department, job. Like maybe he could be head of security. I don't know.
Like a specific department.
Yeah, he didn't.
No, his duty was like, you run the ship. That's what you do.
But in Riker's defense, I think that the ship that he was running was probably the largest ship of all the ships in the franchise.
Exactly. I mean,
so he had his hands full.
That was a full-time job. Like, you really couldn't be some other type of officer and run that ship.
No. But he also, I think, so one of the things we talked about, I just mentioned, was that, you're the captain's moral compass. And I think that the relationship between the pairings are really interesting because we were talking about Kirk and Spock being brother, sister. Kirk and Spock being brother. And then Picard and Riker, I really do think they were almost like father, son, mentor, mentee.
Yeah.
And then Archer and T'Pol, that was just whack. I mean, their relationship was crazy. First of all, he didn't want to run the ship. He threatened to throw her out an airlock. Remember, he threatened to throw her out an airlock at one point.
Because he basically didn't trust Vulcans.
He didn't trust Vulcans. So that was a very strange relationship to put him in, to have his exec be someone that he wasn't really sure if she had his back. And she really had to go through some stuff to prove to him that he could trust her.
I think the most whack one was, because they were thrown together too, was Janeway and Chakotay.
Yes.
Yeah, I got to agree with you on that one.
Thrown together for real.
Well,
the Marquis guy and the Starfleet officer.
Right.
And they bumped heads, I think more, from my recollection, they bumped heads more than any of these duos.
Chakotay and Janeway?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Chakotay was always trying to do his duty, which was to play devil's advocate sometimes and to really check his captain on her moral compass, which was questionable many times,
Yes.
But
good to note, whatever, I'm just going to do it anyway.
That's what she basically said. I'm doing it anyway.
But he was always kind of coming up and saying, but sometimes I think that Chakotay was like, he would take this. Well, he was doing his first officer duty. He always had the ship and the crew in his first thought. And the thing that was going to be the least dangerous for them, he was going to do. And she was going to explore whatever and help any alien coming through a vortex. She was ready to help him. So.
Yeah.
And sometimes you were just like, Janeway, really? But then another thing I think that was really interesting in when they have these moral dilemmas, that sometimes the thing that's driving these moral dilemmas, I don't think anybody had more moral dilemmas than Sisko, is guilt. Janeway was always feeling guilty that she got them stuck in the frickin' Delta Quadrant from the get-go.
Yeah.
And she was always trying to overcompensate for making that decision. And Chakotay had to check her on it. But then they had that other thing going on too, just like T'Pol and Archer. Like, the thing I really find interesting watching these relationships is when there is an opposite sex relationship. And you cannot avoid the S word. You cannot. I think the only ones that did were Kira and Sisko, and that's only because she thought of him as a demigod.
Right.
So,
Actually,
I don't think it's Right, as a guy. I don't think it's only because she thought of him as the emissary. I think, like, there was they never played any ambiguity of sexual tension between the two of them at all. Like, it was not in Sisko's purview. Like, you couldn't see Sisko going there. Like, it's not even that, she looked up to him. It's like Sisko wouldn't go there, period.
No, he wouldn't.
Right. It never happened with that pairing, but it happened in all the others, like Janeway and Chakotay. I mean, they were just ridiculous.
I thought they in the first 3 years, I just knew that they were going to get together.
Really, you were just waiting for it. I mean, when they got on the planet,
I was waiting for it, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, what episode was that when they were down on that planet and they both had that disease and. Right. They go back to the ship.
Right. They were stuck on that planet for how long? They were there for like 3 months or
a long time.
They were there for quite some time. It was like 15 days while they were in stasis. And then they couldn't figure out what bug it was. I just thought that but I have to tell you, that had one of the best it had one of the best Chakotay moments when he told her the warrior story. Remember, he told her the story of the angry warrior, because she said, "Listen, we got to talk about this. We just got to get this straight right now." He was giving her the back rub, and it was getting a little hot in there, and she was like, "All right, sit down. We're just gonna have to talk about this right now." I mean, he had built it a bathtub. It was just getting ridiculous on that planet. So, and he tells her that story about the angry warrior. He went up big points in my book when he was saying that he was the angry warrior. He met the beautiful warrior queen, and the only thing he was going to do in his life was going to be to help her make her decision. That was all he was going to do. And then we were like, okay, Q7. But I loved that scene. It was a great speech that he made to her. And it was just like, so I'm giving you everything I got. I am your first officer. You can count on me. It's never going to cross this boundary. I will do whatever it takes to get you and this ship home. I was like, that is my boy right there. Too
bad. I think his role diminished somewhat, a lot after they got the Barbie Borg on board. So, I really liked his strong presence at first, and then when they diminished him, I didn't like it at all. Because they had a good relationship. They, he always, like you said, he was really her moral compass. So she did what she wanted to do anyway. But he always stood up to her and told her what was right. And probably what most of the audience was thinking too at the time.
Yeah. Remember Equinox when he was telling her, no, we can't do this, and she was going to throw him in the brig.
Right.
I think she would find him the quarters.
Yeah, she was. Yeah.
But going back, like my other favorite pairing though, and we want to talk about this one because I think you brought this one up, Fran. I think we mentioned Picard and Riker, but Riker had the dubious distinction of being the person that ran into more of his past captains than anybody else. Or having another captain, not his past captain, but having another captain. Because remember when, his captain... Jellicoe came on board. And so now we have a change in command styles where we have Picard being scholarly, diplomatic, he's cerebral, and then we have Jellicoe coming in there and he's
shoot from the hip, Jellicoe.
Damn. Wow.
Oh yeah, Jellicoe was really representative of the military arm of Starfleet. It was just all extremely militaristic, and he just expected his orders to be obeyed, period. That's your job. It's obey my orders. Don't question them, obey them, and do it quickly.
I loved it when he just dressed down Troy. She was like, well, I think the crew needs a little time. He was like, there is no time.
I don't have time to hold their hands. And by the way, put some clothes on.
And all she could do was blink.
That was it. And she was in uniform. She was in Starfleet uniform from then on.
She put it on, and we went to 4 rotations of, shift rotations right away, too.
Sure did.
Like, get it done. But
and he told Picard, I don't mean no harm, bro, but this is my ship now. You need to back off.
I loved it. He told Picard where he could go, too. But in his defense, and it was interesting because Picard was saying in that earlier scene with Jellicoe, he was saying that he picked Riker specifically because he did not adhere to the chain of command in a situation, and he wouldn't let his other captain, DeSoto, go down to the planet. He said, that's why I picked Will, because he risked his career and the chain of command because he was going to do what he thought was the right thing to do. And that's what he was telling Pressman when Pressman came aboard in the Pegasus episode. Todd goes through this whole thing about why he picked Will Riker, because Will had that streak. But Will wound up basically. Will
wound up basically confined to quarters, not officially, but kind of, because he was sitting in there relaxing. When Geordi told Jellicoe that he had to, that he was the best pilot, that he would be the best one to, to do the thing, and he was sitting in his quarters chilling, and and he had to go in there, and they realized, I don't like you, but look, we need to get this done.
Yeah. So he was like, what did he say? Just ask me.
Yeah, just ask me. Just ask me.
As opposed to commanding me, just ask me.
Just ask me.
So Jellicoe had a definite brusque command style. Picard, like I said, he was that scholar, that diplomat. Okay, here's a question for you. Command styles. I mean, Kirk, I love this. I love the one time when Kirk said, Kirk was brilliant, he was passionate, he was a born leader. And then the question that I love to ask people, Kirk said, Spock was telling him something one time, and he said, no, the game isn't chess, the game is poker. And it was like the Corbomite maneuver, right? And he was like, we're going to play poker. And so Kirk was like that poker player. And I think Picard was like more of a chess player.
Yes, that's a great analogy. That's a great,
So I would ask you now, what do you think? Was Janeway a poker player, or is she a chess player, or does she have another game that's all her own?
Monopoly.
She's a Monopoly player.
Monopoly, because she was going to do and take control and do what she wanted to do.
She's going to try to get home. She's trying to get back to home square.
Right. Form alliances, lies, whatever she needed to do, she did. Like some people do in Monopoly, and they got the whole board to themselves. Somebody might get Park Avenue and the other blue spaces, but Janeway was running it. And she was the banker, so hey.
I was gonna go with poker myself,
You think Janeway's a poker player, huh?
Yeah, but she's a lot of both, because she was a great tactician as well.
Yeah, I have that down here. She's ethical, scientist, negotiator.
Yeah, she's a scientist. Yeah, she's a great
negotiator. She was a good negotiator too, and a tactician. Yes, I like the one with I'm going with you with that one, Tamia. I'm saying I like Monopoly though, but I like poker because I remember that one episode where she was just like, "I don't like bullies."
Yeah.
She will definitely, bring you to the brink, through load torpedoes. And Janeway will shoot at you. That's for sure. And for Cisco, well, I don't know. I mean, he's just like a card player. He's playing war. He's not even playing poker or he's playing that game war like we used to play when we were kids. I declare war.
Oh, yes. And what's that other game, that strategy game too, along with I Declare War? Battleship.
Battleship, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's definitely Cisco's, because I've got him down as a romantic, I think he was also passionate, but he is the warrior captain. I mean, make no mistake about it. If you got to fight the Dominion, that's the man you want on the bridge of the Defiant.
Oh, absolutely.
The ship fit him. The war fit him. I mean, he was just all that. I tell you. But he had a lot of moral dilemmas.
But I think you could also add negotiator onto Sisko too. You know, I mean, he had to negotiate quite a bit on behalf of Bajor, and in order, like, just to keep the station up and running. Yeah. Like you know, for instance, in the first couple episodes when he's negotiating with Quark, you know, that was he had Quark between a rock and a hard place, even though he needed Quark's services. You know.
I don't know if that was really a negotiation as opposed to I'll let your nephew out of jail if you open up your bar.
Hey, it worked, right?
He's looking at 5 to 10. The Cisco was rough, I tell you, but he is absolutely my favorite. I do like that relationship that he had with Kira, but it was strange, you know. There's always like a third person in these relationships. So, you know, Kirk and Spock had McCoy in there, and Cisco and Kira definitely had Jadzia in there.
I was about to say they had Dax,
because she almost took some of the duties of that first officer, but she was like the confidant. Because she was really Curzon. I mean,
she was Curzon. She was Dax.
She was Dax. Thank you.
Mm-hmm,
he still looked at her as the old man. He still called her the old man. Yeah. So that was his McCoy to Kira's Spock. But like you said, I think that these two, Kira and I love the episode Starship Down, where Cisco gets knocked out. And Kira has to keep him talking.
Yes. And she tells him stories. And
and you can tell that she's uncomfortable with him.
Yeah.
And she says, I don't know what we talk about. What she said, talk to him. She says, what do we talk about? And he says, we just talk about work. And she's like, yeah, that's all we ever talk about. And she's freaking out because now she doesn't know what to talk to him about. And he says, tell me a story.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think I love the end of that one too, when there's that time where each captain tries to make it more personal with their first officer. They go out of their way to do it. And you see Cisco do it here when he invites her to the ball game and he gives her the cap. And she just has that smile on her face like a little girl who just got, like, you know, the big prize. And the captain asked her to go to the ball game with them. And she was so excited because he's realizing too that he's been keeping her at arm's length or at arm's distance, and that he really needs to be closer to his first officer.
Even though it was only for 2 episodes, Burnham was Georgiou's first officer.
Right.
And that turned, I mean, I thought they had a pretty good, you know, from the beginning, from the first episode when they were down on that planet, and they were talking, you could tell that they were friends and they were respectful of each other. And there was this kind of a mentor-mentee, of course, relationship and mother-daughter relationship.
Yeah.
You know, I thought, you know, when she first came on the Shinju, I don't know, they didn't, unless somebody else saw it, I don't know if she came on as first officer. I don't know what happened, because I remember seeing Saru. You know, when she first came on, I saw Saru on the bridge. So I don't know. She was first officer when they were down on the thing, but I don't know what her position was when she first came on the ship.
No, because she said, "Go ahead, Tamia."
I don't think they made that very clear. I actually just watched that episode the other night, and it was just like her memories of her first day coming onto the ship, but it was not made clear in what position was she coming on there, you know. And I got the sense that she was not coming on as first officer. I got the sense that she was coming on, that Georgiou had really mentored her from very early in her career.
Up to first officer. Because she says to Tyler that she served on the Shinju for 8 years, 12 years?
Some 9 years.
She tells Tyler that, and he says,
"It wasn't 7 years. It wasn't 7 years."
She was on that ship with Georgiou for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Sarek brought her to Georgiou only because he knew that she could help her make the transition to living with humans.
Going back to her humanity.
Right. But yeah, I don't think.
I got to say something about like the relationship. I mean, that particular first officer and captain relationship, as it was told to us, I think it was so wonderful what they were able to establish in just 2 episodes.
Yeah.
The depth and complexity of that particular relationship, which was very, really different from all the other captain and first officer relationships, because it had not only the aspect of the mentor-mentee, but because it had that really intimate aspect where Georgiou really did become a surrogate mother to Burnham. Like, Burnham has needed women to play that role in her life, her whole life. And Georgiou was it. And so when we get to that scene, and spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Discovery yet, in the Battle of the Binary Stars, when Burnham is grieving over Georgiou, it's so visceral, it's so real.
Yes.
Yeah. And it really gives you the depth, because we see like you said, when on the very first episode, we see them walking in the desert together, and and there's level of intimate camaraderie, but you don't realize how deep it went until the Battle of the Binary Stars.
Right.
Also,
and what did she tell? Go ahead.
Also, way later on, we find out that they were really, really friends, because she took her, the prime Georgiou, took Burnham to her country, took her to her home.
That's right.
She said, you took me there once. Where did you say where are you from? So we know that they even traveled together. She also left her most prized possession to her in her, in her will, and Burnham got that. She was her first officer.
Yeah, I just think it's really, credit to the Discovery staff, the writers, and everybody on that staff, but especially the actresses, especially Sonequa Martin Green and Michelle Yeoh, because for what they brought to the very small, not a lot of time, like really 2 episodes to be those women in that relationship, and then after those 2 episodes, it's boom, it's off. It's totally different. 2 episodes to tell us that story. They were amazing. Absolutely.
And we got the story. We got the background. We got it.
But that's why the whole thing that happened at the Binary Stars just did not make any sense. And that's why a lot of people were just mad about that episode. But, you just couldn't believe that she was going to turn on her and mutiny, do what she did, no matter what she heard from Sarek or whatever. It just made no sense. But, we're going to let it go.
That's for another episode.
That's for another episode.
Right.
It sure is. Because the relationship was so strong and so tight. And the fact that, they went on the away mission, just the 2 of them, was also sort of questionable. I mean, that was not a good decision. You take some red shirts.
That just took me back to, TOS, like,
right.
Like, why is the captain gallivanting down to a planet with one other person? And
you're going to fight some Klingons? Who's made that decision?
It's not like Star Trek does not have a rich history of sending their captains into ridiculously stupid situations.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because there is one point where on Enterprise, I think, what was it? Captain Archer gets this message that one of his buddies from the EXO testing days has just died. And he wants to go on this little pod mission all alone. And so he tells Trip he can't come. And T'Pol, to her credit, she just gets in the pod and she's just making okay, well, here we go. And he said, no, I really want to do this on my own. And she just looks at him and she says, well, apparently Commander Tucker forgot to remind you that the captain cannot leave the ship unaccompanied. I was like, okay, you go, first officer. let me just tell you who I am, Captain, and I will be sitting here. And then she said, and besides, I am your science officer, so I think it would be make sense that you take me with you to this.
That's right.
So I said, that's when I loved T'Pol. She was just like, okay, I know your boy, just let you get in the pod, because he knew that guy too, and he understood how Archer was feeling. But the first officer came right through and did her job and said, no, my job is to protect the captain. I'm going with you.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Archer and T'Pol, because we haven't really talked about his command style at all. Because I know that's your boy.
He talked too damn much for me. He just talked too much.
I have to, full disclosure to all of our listeners, I was not an Enterprise fan before we started doing the podcast, or even before Discovery. After Discovery came on, and you could binge everything on CBS All Access. That's when I really started watching it, not even on Netflix. But binging it, I have come to really love Archer. He's the first captain. He has no template to go by. Yeah, so he's talking a lot because he doesn't even know what he's doing half the time.
No, he doesn't.
He's a great captain though, but he's hot-tempered. He's, what else? He's got something to prove.
He's long-winded. He used to start these speeches.
He has no filter. Filter.
He used to start these speeches and my eyes would roll in the back of my head. I'm like, oh gosh, here he comes again. Not another speech, rally around the flag, boy speech.
I'm trying to think of one that was really horrible, but he's also very naive, I think.
Extremely.
Yeah, they had no idea.
But like you said, he's the first, so he's kind of playing it by ear. He doesn't know.
Wow, yeah.
He in that sense really represents, all of humanity. When we were first reaching out into the stars like that, we as a species were extremely naive about what's out there because we'd never been out there, and it's not like the Vulcans were extremely forthcoming.
No, they held humans back for a long time.
They were hindering.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And their whole thing, and you kind of have to understand what the Vulcans, where they were coming from too. And I think one Vulcan in one episode, I can't remember which one it was, but they make the statement that the humans, in just the 1 or 2 years that they had, they had like maybe 10 years that they had warp capability, did what it took the Vulcans 100 years to do. And the diplomat says to Archer that the Vulcans were actually afraid of what the humans could accomplish because they were just so fast at what they were doing. And that they were just trying to we just got to rein these guys in because, we're the big kahuna right now in the universe. And then here come these humans. And the next thing we know, they're running Starfleet and we're just like to set the first officer. How the hell did this happen? They were worried about their place in the Alpha Quadrant, I really do think. So, T'Pol and Archer as captain and first officer, I think they had a very rocky start.
Yeah.
And she couldn't even stand the smell of the ship. And but she ends up there was the one episode called A Night in Sick Bay, which is probably when you hate Fran because he's really talking a lot in that one. And Porthos gets sick, and Porthos is nearly dying, and so he's in sick bay with the dog. And T'Pol just cannot even understand this, and neither can Dr. Phlox. And but finally Phlox tells Archer that the reason he is so angry at T'Pol is because maybe he has a little sexual tension towards her. And Archer really goes off. There's that scene where he makes the Freudian slips. And every time I see that scene, I just crack up because he's telling her, come and bring me. She said, I'll bring you the list. He said, yes, bring me your lips. And I just lose it. And he is just getting more and more frustrated. But then at the end, she makes the big speech to him, and she says, "Well, hypothetically speaking, it's good that my captain, that the captain wouldn't ever make any romantic, advances towards a subordinate officer, so we don't have to worry about that, right? And he's like, oh, yeah, right.
I never saw them. I never saw anything. I mean, it was something in that little episode, but I never saw them as like that. I always thought her and, what's his name? Trip. Was it Trip?
Oh, no. To Paul and Archer had a couple of moments in that detox room that were a little touchy. And there was a couple of share the blanket episodes on some coal planets that were a little close too.
And see, this is what I'm talking about. Like, they would play this game, the producers and stuff would play this game about, like, let's test the waters and see if people want to see, this type of relationship formulate, or we can dance around it, and create this tension, which is just like, one of the reasons why I do love Cisco and Kira Nerys is because for real, if we were, in Starfleet, and no, we're not playing that game. Like, are you kidding me? You could be court-martialed for that,
Exactly. I think the only one that had circumstances was Janeway and Chakotay, where they were like, okay, y'all are lost for like 7 years. I mean, like, throw the book out, because
they might have get a little bit of a break, maybe,
but she wasn't taking it.
Right, and as well, she shouldn't have, because honestly, that would be the breakdown of the command structure and that crew. Like, you cannot. Yeah. The first officer and the captain, that's a conflict of interest for anybody that has an issue that they have to take up the chain of command.
We started twice.
Those two actors as having any chemistry at all.
Oh no, they didn't.
Which two?
I thought her and Trip. I thought they had chemistry, but I didn't think her and Archer had any chemistry at all as far as sexual.
Oh, well, me. I mean, Trip has chemistry all by his little self. My goodness.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I was like, pecan pie? Yeah, I'll have a piece of pecan pie, Trip. Oh, my God. I love them as captain and first officer.
They were good together. Yeah.
I thought they were excellent together.
They were, yeah. I think, okay, now, but we have to talk about after Saru lost his threat stuff and that bridge scene. Remember the bridge scene?
Oh, we can't forget the bridge scene. He was up on his little high heels.
Oh my gosh.
After he lost his threat ganglia.
Yes. And then it was a whole nother first officer that Pike was dealing with there.
Totally.
Yeah, Pike was like, whoa, okay, wait a minute. Who's this dude again?
Yeah, he's like, wait, no, I'm the baddest guy on this bridge, but maybe not.
and the way the bridge crew was like, wait a minute. The look and oh my gosh, I can't think of his name. Sexy guy, what's his
Tyler?
Ash was like,
oh, so I guess he's mine now. You forgot his name. Is that mean Tyler's mine now? Because you forgot his name.
No, it doesn't.
Here they go.
WTF.
Here they go again.
And if Burnham hadn't got between them, I'm sure Saru wouldn't have, punched him out or nothing, because, he could have cracked his face open if he did. But
I don't know what Saru was going to do, but he was coming for him.
Pike was walking toward the guy. Like, what? Do you think I really wouldn't do this? Have you lost, Oh my gosh.
You know what I would have paid money to see, though? Saru lose the threat ganglia with Lorca on.
Oh my God, that would have been brilliant. Lorca.
I would have loved to have seen Lorca and Saru when Saru had no threat ganglia, because I would pay money for them to do me a short.
I think that's why he chose Saru as his first officer, because he knew Saru would go with anything he said, just about.
Well,
I'm talking about Lorca. I'm talking about Lorca.
Yeah, I know, but he was the next command. He was the next guy, so it wasn't like he bypassed anybody. He was supposed to take him, but I think he was a little frustrated with Saru. Well, Lorca was frustrated with the whole crew, because he was like a Jellicoe coming in there. And he just wanted that crew to be a battleship crew, and they were a science crew.
Right.
Right. But I do think, I'm sure he had, I'm sure, I know this, I'm sure
That's a
they
point.
put Saru there because he wouldn't be a threat to Lorca. And, okay, the writers put Saru there, but Lorca wanted him there because of his demeanor. And that he wouldn't question, he said, because he told Burnham, he said the captain does what he wants to do, basically.
Right.
And he said, I'm the first officer and I'm supposed to know this. I didn't even know this. He didn't even consult Saru. Saru had no idea that Burnham was staying on the ship until he saw her in the elevator. I mean, in the turbo lift.
That's right. And that is one of the things, that's one of the officers, the first officer's job is to know who the personnel are.
Personnel? He didn't even, he didn't consult with me. I had no idea he was going to still be here.
Well, he was in so many ways under Lorca, like a first officer in name only. He didn't have that full weight of duties that the rest of these first officers that we've been talking about have had.
No.
Yeah. And what did you think about Pike when he came on board with Saru and he was sort of like, well, I'll be the captain and then sometimes you could be the captain. Like to be a joint custody.
I think it was out of respect to the crew, and he wanted the crew to like him too. You just can't come in here, So he was being diplomatic. He said, it's your ship too, and he wanted the crew to like him. So he put Saru in that position to be his co-captain, kind of, as he said.
I think it's funny because I think almost all of them wanted, they wanted the crew to, he seemed to be more concerned. Well, the crew had been through so much when Pike came on board. That was they, as he said, they had been betrayed by their captain.
Right.
So he was coming in and he really was trying to overcompensate for something that he had no control of. How badly they
details.
Do you really think he was trying to overcompensate for it, or just?
I mean, he was doing more than I think he would have done with any other crew. By showing him his service records, showing him all that stuff. I mean, he was just like, okay, you guys, I'm a good guy, and I don't think any other captain would come in showing you his F in astrophysics. Like, why would you do that?
Mm-hmm.
But I think he was really trying to hey, okay, you guys calm down. He didn't come in like Jellicoe, like, hey, because like he said to Saru when he got off the transport pad, he said, I'm here because all the stuff went off, all three of the regulations, okay? I'm taking over.
All three of them.
Everything's crazy. But he still came in like, let me just ease you all down. But I think that's his nature too. I mean, that's his command style. He's more laid back and kind of even when he was telling Saru that he didn't appreciate him letting the two people fight in the mess hall, he was kind of nice about it,
Yeah.
Let's not do that again. But
speaking of Pike, what about Pike and number one? The first number one.
Here we go again with that male-female thing.
From the cage.
Yeah.
And
as the other woman said, well, which one of us would have been Eve? She was concerned about it.
Well, we know number one from the cage and from Discovery.
Yep.
And actually from Q&A, we find out, that they continue on with that. She's got something. She's got this huge. She's crushing on Pike.
Oh,
she really is.
Yeah, you think?
Hard.
I mean, Spock called her on it, and she daggone near blushed.
Right?
You seem to have done a complete study on the captain. She was like,
Oh, you gotta love short treks.
I do, because and why wouldn't she? Because I mean, we've all had that relationship with a great friend who's a guy, and there is always, you cannot remove the sexual tension. In fact, that's one of the things about the relationship that makes it kind of fun, because you're like, ooh, but it's never gonna happen. You know, it's never going to happen, but it's just always going to be
Well,
there.
more reasons than one for me.
I was about to say, like, is it all of us with a guy? You know?
Okay, so
Not
me.
always a guy.
Speaking for everyone here? I don't know.
I've had these best friends that have been guys, and it's always just been a little, no, I don't think so.
But I think that it's also a common experience, no matter what your gender or gender preference, the attraction between mentor and mentee also, like, you know, between somebody who's really teaching you something and you're learning from and you really admire them, you know, that's a natural attraction that happens too. And, you know, whether or not it's acted upon, though, you know, is really sort of the testament of the character of the mentor.
Yes.
You know?
And the person is, I mean, you know, in most cases, you admire this person because of their position, for their brains, for their experience. And all of those are attractive traits that people have.
Yeah.
You know,
and all of our captains are brilliant. Every one of them.
Yes.
You can't be a captain and not be brilliant.
And not, you know, and not be brilliant. Unless you cheat on the Kobayashi Maru.
But he did it brilliantly.
Right. See, he gets a pass.
He gets a pass. I know. The Kobayashi Maru, only person that cheated and won the scenario. Okay.
Oh yeah.
But I just wanna we're almost at the almost at the hour mark here with this one, and I think we've got a lot said about our captains. I just wanted to touch on what episode or what time did you think that the captain was definitely at his worst point and was saved or helped by his first officer? I have a couple of ideas in my head, or even when they were at that point, and what did their first officers do? Did they confront them? Did they just let them just be crazy? I mean, did they see some kind of reason behind it? And I'm thinking of a couple of different episodes where one of them, of course, is for the uniform in Cisco, when he poisoned the planet, when he was chasing Eddington.
Was Kira on the Defiant?
They were on the Defiant.
Was Kira on the Defiant then?
Kira was on the Defiant. Kira was on the Defiant.
They left Dax in charge, right, of the station?
Yeah, Worf was on the ship, O'Brien and Kira, when he gave the order. But, you know, there's a pretext to that. I mean, Eddington had done the very same thing. And Cisco made that statement to Dax, and he said, Eddington gave him the book, Les Miserables, and he says, oh, he sees himself as Jean Valjean. He said, he's telling me I'm the other guy, you know. Mm-hmm. And so he says, well, maybe it's time for me to be a villain. Remember that?
I remember.
And so Cisco wasn't really losing his mind when he did that. Like, a lot of times when you look at the people talking about how bad Cisco is, and they're like, well, hey, nobody, like, well, Cisco poisoned the planet, you know. It was like, he was showing Eddington exactly what he had done to the Kardashians, and he poisoned that planet. And he was like, I'm going to do the same freaking stuff. And the thing that got me was like, no one challenged Cisco when he was going to make this thing happen. He had to tell Worf twice.
Yeah, Worf kind of hesitated.
Worf hesitated. I mean, see, the thing is, like, even if Eddington did that, you know, it's still like, we're Starfleet. We don't lie, you know, like we're Starfleet. Like, this is a completely reprehensible act, no matter what the justification was, and especially not for one man. You know, I mean, it really speaks to Cisco's obsession and mania, like this madness about Eddington, you know, which went
but neither Worf nor Kira challenged him. They did not go first officer on him. They were like, no. I'm not going to tell him nothing. You going to tell him something? I'm not telling him anything.
Right.
I thought that was amazing because they fired.
Right. And gosh, we could do a whole episode on that one show alone, because, we'd never seen anybody in Starfleet behave that way. We know that in an organization as large and as bureaucratic and as multi-limbed, like Hydra, like as Starfleet is, that that you've got these folks making these questionable decisions. And
most of the admirals.
Oh, bad admiral.
Thank you. The bad admirals. Yes. They have to, but we had never been presented with that on our show. So honestly,
Yeah. Oh, what about, there's another one where Kirk loses his self for a second and they have to check him. They check him. But remember, it was called Obsession. And Kirk was on the planet and he smelled that sickly sweet honey smell of the cloud monster.
Yes.
And they were supposed to meet up with the Yorktown or something. They had the medicine and Scotty was telling them and Spock was telling them. And Kirk says, I really don't appreciate my senior officers conspiring against me. And everybody just went, oh, snap. They were all trying to check him. They were like, Captain, we have got to meet the Yorktown. Why are we chasing this thing that nobody can see and sensors don't read? And remember, he cussed out Chekhov. Chekhov said, I've run the scans twice, sir, and I don't see any dichronium. He said, run it again. That was a crazy episode. Kirk was losing it.
Yeah, he did.
And McCoy came to him. He said, I'm going to put it in the medical record. And he said, well, you need a witness for that. And McCoy hit the door, and there was Spock. And they checked my boy. They did not check Cisco.
No.
But in both instances, they were right. Kirk was right. There was a monster.
Well, yeah, but he had experience with this monster from 10 years before or something?
Right.
Yes.
Right. But he ended up being proven right. But for a minute there, they were like, I don't know what you're talking about, and we might have to put a notation in the medical log. Yeah. So I just thought it was interesting that Cisco didn't get checked in that one by his first officers. Either Lieutenant Commander Worf, whose place it was not to check him, but it was Kira's.
Right. Well, I think we have had a really excellent discussion on the captains and their first officers, don't you?
I think so too.
Oh yeah. So many different aspects of the relationships and who they were and how they got along, or sometimes didn't get along. It's really, really interesting. Even from the cage all the way up to Disco, these relationships were really something. And it can't, with Disco, I still think even though they weren't officially in those roles, I really thought that they carried on the same way. I think Burnham and Mira Georgiou had the same relationship.
Oh yeah. I agree with you there, Fran.
Even though it wasn't official, it was the same relationship.
Yeah. I feel like in the future we can come back and really delve into some of these relationships even more even deeper. There's a lot to talk about. Episode.
Yeah, there is. They're very special relationships. There's no other type of relationship like it in Star Trek. I mean, these are the captain and their first are, they're bonded. They're bonded people, and they go through all kinds of stuff, and they serve for a long time with that officer. And when that person is removed, it changes the dynamic of the entire structure that they're commanding, whether it be a station or a ship or, a quadrant.
Yeah. So let me ask you this before we have to sign off. Okay, real quick, off the top of your head, would you rather be the captain or the first officer?
I'm a great first officer.
Fran, what about you?
I don't know. Okay. Well, I think it depends which one I would be. It would depend on the captain. I would love to be Cisco's first officer.
I think I would love to be a first officer for a while, but then I think I would get tired of it and I'd want to be captain.
So we got, I was going to say, we got all first officers on this group. It's just because, okay, you know what, ladies, cut this shit. We're all going to say, we're the captains. Forget it. We're going to take a page.
Exactly.
Let's take a page from Burnham and Janeway. But we're the captains, God dog it.
I'd be a captain like Jellicoe. I'd be like, you know what? I would. I'm telling y'all, I would. That's why I didn't want to be captain. Because, I'd be like barking orders and, all that. And I ain't got time for no crazy. I ain't got time for yes, y'all.
I was thinking that when she said first officer, I was like, oh, hell no.
I ain't got time, y'all. Look, this is going to happen and this is what we're going to do. Y'all got some input. That was, let me hear it and then I'll decide whether or not we're going to do it.
That's right. Give me this is not a democracy.
It's not a democracy. I'm in charge. I would listen to my first officer to a point, and then I'd be like, you know what? Go put some clothes on.
On that note,
that's gotta be that's the hashtag. You know what? Go put some clothes on.
Go put some clothes on.
That's the title of this episode. Go put some clothes on.
Oh boy. Okay, and that's the end of our show for this week. I want to thank the SyFy Sistas, Tamia Harper and Fran Taylor, and I am Subrina Wood. Ladies, why don't you tell everybody how they can reach you? Fran, where can everybody get in touch with you?
I am Fran T at SyFySisters.com.
Tamia?
I am, what am I? At SyFy Sistas. I'm Tamia at SyFySisters.com. That's TAMIA. SyFy, SYFYI, Sisters, SISTAS.com.
And I am Subrina, SUBRINA, at SyFySisters.com. And please send us a message and let us know what you think of the show. And until the next episode, live long and prosper.
Put some clothes on.